In this exercise, we're going to draw the Galley Kitchen, and we're going to insert the range, the refrigerator, and the sink. And what I've done is I've downloaded them from the AutoCAD Publisher website, and so you can click on each of these to open those drawings. And then we're going to create layers for walls, appliances, plumbing, and cabinets. And we're going to use our basic B-size title block for this exercise. So to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the content area, and I'm going to download the B-size architectural title block, and I'm going to open that. And then I'm going to go back to the main splash page and download and open each of these drawings. So there's the range, the refrigerator, the sink, and the faucet. I'm going to go back to my B-size architectural title block. I'm going to go to model space, and then I'm going to turn on my menu bar. If I go to this arrow right here, I can hide the menu bar. I can show the menu bar. And then if I go under tools, I can go under drafting settings. And if I'd like to, I can turn a snap and a grid on, and I'll leave the snap set up at 1/2 inch, and I'll put the grid spacing at 6 inches. I'll OK that. And so here's our grid. We can start by drawing the walls. And so I want to make sure that I have my polar enabled. Remember, polar will allow you to track straight lines, and it depends on the increment angle. I typically set this to 15 degrees because it's kind of like a drafting machine. And then if we look at snap and grid, you can see the snap and grid are still the same as I set those before. And then object snap, I'm going to leave that on as well. And I'm just going to take the default settings for that. If we take a look at the drawing itself, the walls are 6 inches thick. And so what we can do is we can start with this interior line and draw a 2 feet 6 by 10 feet by 2 feet 6. And then we can offset that 6 inches and then connect all the line geometry for that. So on the line layer, we'll go to a spot. We'll drive this down, and then we'll type in 10 feet. Drive it to the right, 2 feet 6. Drive it this way, say 6. Hit escape, line from that endpoint, 2 feet 6. And then we'll use offset 6 inches. To offset those lines. And you can use extend to extend these lines. Now, since they don't cross, we either have to pull them and then extend it and then trim. Or what we can do is use fillet command and program the radius to be 0, and then it works like a trim command. And so we can then offset 3 feet, this line here to this side. And it appears that it's a mirror image of the other object. And so what we can do is, if we want to draw a line for a construction line, and I'll just color that red, and then create another line as a mirror line from that midpoint, and then we can mirror that geometry. Using a blue crossing window, we'll only get those lines. And I do have one double line here, so I'm going to click on it and delete it just as a housekeeping item. And then we can delete this as well. We can go to our dimension line layer and we can put in a linear dimension just to verify that we have our dimensions correct. And we can change this to bilayer to make sure that that's right. We can put another dimension. And again, I want this to be bilayer. If we want those layer properties for the dimensions, we can go through and type in DDIM, or you can go to the annotate and to the dimension style, and we can modify those slightly if we want to. So for example, they like the text to be horizontal, and so as I go through and I look at the way they have the text set up on here, they have it set up as horizontal. And then if you want to use the City Blueprint font, it looks a little nicer than Arial. We can apply that, close it. And so it looks a little nicer. All right, so far so good. Let's add a couple more dimensions. 2 feet 6. And then what we'll do is we'll add the range and the refrigerator. Now, the refrigerator we downloaded and we opened, and what you can do is you can just select it and then say edit copy. And if you copy it with a base point, you can select this point right here. And then if we go to our drawing, we can paste that as a block. And it's on the dimension layer, so I will need to switch that to the appliance layer. And so since we don't have an appliance layer, I can go here, layer properties, make a new layer, and I can call it appliance. And I think I'll make the color for that purple. For the line type, I'll leave that as continuous, and for the line weight, they don't tell us what the line weight should be, but I'm going to dial that down to 0.3 millimeters. And then I'm going to close that and put that on that appliance layer. And then I'm going to take and rotate that. And move it. To the location for the refrigerator. The range is located 5 feet 6 to the center of the range. So again, we can go back to the range drawing, which we downloaded. And we can say edit copy with base point. And this time we want to use a midpoint. And so I'm using an O-snap. And you can see the triangle there. That's the midpoint. And then I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to paste it as a block. And again, I put it on the wrong layer, so I'll go and put it on the appliance layer. I'll offset 5 feet 6 inches. And I don't really want to offset the block. I really want to offset just that line right there. And so you want to zoom in 5 feet 6, enter, select the line, and then the side. And then what we want to do is we want to take our, and with grips, what you can do is you can click on the grip, and if you hit the space bar, you can change it to a move or a rotate by hitting the space bar again. And so you can toggle through these smart grip commands if you so desire, and then you can move it with a grip into place like that. So that's just a command that works quite well. And then I usually will put that onto a centerline layer. Doesn't look like I have a centerline layer. So what I'll do is I'll create a centerline layer just for now. And I'll make that red. And I'll make the line type load center. A lot of times I'll take the center 0.5 because it's just a little more detailed. And then now that I've created that centerline layer, I can then just go and select that geometry, put it on the centerline layer to keep track of that, so that when I put the dimension on my dimension layers, I have something to dimension to. All right, as we continue working on this drawing, we're going to go and offset this wall 2 feet for one of the cabinets. And then we'll just draw the countertop with a line that's 1 foot and another line that's 2 feet. So we'll go back to our offset command, to apostrophe, inside wall line, hit escape. And then we can just copy the cabinet geometry to the edge there. And then we can go and offset 1 foot. And we can trim that. If I hit the grip and I pull that with ortho, I can make my life a little easier. There we go. And then what we'll do is we'll offset 1 more foot. And then we'll trim this. And what we want to do here is to trim this, and we want a cabinet layer with a hidden line. And so what I'm going to do is go to Layer Properties, and I'm going to make a new layer. It'll copy the current layer that you have selected. So I'm going to select the appliance layer. I'm going to say New, and then I'm going to name it Cabinet. And then I'm going to change the color to one of these brown colors here. And I'm going to leave the line weight 0.3. I think that would be fine. And I'm going to make it current. Current means it will draw on that layer. And then what I'll do is I'll put these lines on the cabinet layer. And then while I'm on the cabinet layer, I can draw the line geometry for the shelving here. And since it's not going where I want it to, Shift right mouse click, perpendicular. And then I can click on that line. And you can override the properties for the line types. And so if I want to, I can go and choose Other here. And then I need to load a hidden line. And so I'll say Load. And I'm going to go and find Hidden. And I'm going to use the Hidden too. I'll assign that to the layer. And then as I click on that, I'm going to go and select it as hidden. Now it's not giving me the LT scale that I want, so I'm going to type in LT scale, and I'm going to type in 10, and I'm going to repeat that LT scale. Let's try 15. And you can kind of tweak this. 15 still looks a little bit fine. If I make it 20, essentially you just want it to display in the proper line type. And so that looks fine. Another way that you can change the line types is by clicking on them and then going into properties. And then you can go here and you can select the line type that you'd like to use. So there's a few different ways to override the line types. But essentially, as we go through and we create this, I'll go back to my dimension layer. I'll put in another dimension, verify that I've got this in the right spot. And then if I want to get rid of the zero suppression, I can right click on that and I can go to precision, and it doesn't look like it's going to let me dial it down. No, and so I would have to go, we'll just leave it like this for right now at 2 feet 0. We can go into the dimension styles in later chapters, but for right now, I don't want to get off onto a tangent. All right, and so we have located the range, the refrigerator. We need another cabinet over here, and that's going to be a 1 foot line and a 2 foot line. So we'll offset 1 foot. And then we can bring this back. I'm going to use grips because you can't trim them to blocks. If I try to trim this to a block, well, I guess you can now. So I guess they've updated that. So I guess we can trim it to the block. And then we can erase this. Previous versions of AutoCAD, you couldn't do that. Not sure what that little space chunk is, but I'm going to delete it. All right. And then I'm going to offset this 1 more foot. Remember, it takes the default. It's a modal command, which means that it remembers the last measurement that we had. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these and put them on the cabinet layer. And then we can use a match properties. And what we can do when we use match properties, it will match the color layer and line type. And so if we go to our match properties command, and we select our source, and then the 1-2 copy to that. It's a nice shortcut. And I don't think we need this line here, so I'm going to take that one out. There we go. All right, so we have 2 feet, 5 feet 6 inches, 2 feet 6 inches, 3 feet. We have a refrigerator. We need a 1 foot dimension over here. Remember, you can click on the dimension, click on the grip, and then move it. You want your dimensions to be off of the geometry. And then we'll add a 2 foot dimension. And do the same thing. Neatness counts when you go through and you create these architectural drawings. All right, so the left side of the Galley Kitchen is complete. We can verify that we have that 8 foot dimension. I'm going to turn off my grid by putting a linear dimension from the inside wall to the other inside wall. And so we have 8 feet. And then what we'll do is we'll start to lay out the other components. And so as we go through, if we work this from top to bottom, we can offset this line 2 feet, and then we can offset this line 5 feet and place the sink there. This is a window which we can create. Offset to foot mark, enter, Select the line on the side. Escape. Match property. Offset 2 feet the other way. Match property. I missed it. Trim. And I like to just drag them through. And then we can offset 1 foot. Match it. Trim it. Draw another line. Shift right mouse click perpendicular. Match it to the hidden line. Locate the sink, which is located 5 feet from the inside interior wall. And again, I kind of like to use these center lines as a way of keeping things straight for my dimensioning. So I'm going to match that to a center line, layer and line type. And then I'm going to go and get the sink. And I'm going to copy it with a base point. I'll use the midpoint here, and then I'll select it, hit enter, go to my other drawing, and paste it as a block. I'll put that block on the appliances layer. And do they have a layer for plumbing? Yes, they do. So what we'll do is we'll create a plumbing layer. And let's make that a different color. And we'll set that as current. Place this on the plumbing layer. Again, if you click on it and click on the grip, it'll turn hot. And then if you look down here, you can toggle through. The first one is stretch, spacebar, move, spacebar, rotate. And so I'll spacebar it until I get to rotate, and then I can move it with the grip to the right location for that. And then we'll go and we'll get the faucet. Copy with a base point. Not sure if I did that right. Copy with a base point. Specify our base point as our midpoint. Select the geometry, hit enter. And then toggle back over to our drawing. And if we're on the plumbing layer, it will come in on the plumbing layer. Paste it as a block. Click on it. Click on the grip. Spacebar, spacebar, rotate it, move it, and it looks like we kind of eyeball it in place here. And so we could bring it over here, and then if you wanted to, you could just move it with an ortho mode being on and put it in the center. If you really want to be perfect, you can draw a line and then calculate out that distance, but I don't think we need to be that perfect. And so we'll just move this like that. And then I would probably explode this and trim it because the geometry is a bit deceptive here. And so if you explode a block, it turns into its basic elements. And so we can explode this one too. And then we can trim this area here so that we look professional. And then what we can do is we can put these back on the layer. Blue window only selects what's entirely within it on our plumbing layer. All right. And then what we can do is we can draw another cabinet, or we can just copy this line. And so we can copy it from this endpoint to that endpoint. And we try not to have line geometry on top of line geometry, so you can kind of clean this up if you want to. It really just kind of depends. And then if we wanted to, we can do the same thing where we copy this. And then we offset 2 feet. And it looks like somehow it didn't get in the exact same location, so I'm going to trim it. And then I'm going to extend this. Shift right mouse click, perpendicular. Make sure everything stays straight. Trim this. Go to the cabinet layer if I want to. Draw a line. Perpendicular. All right. And then this line here needs to be trimmed. And we can delete it rather than trim it away. All right, we'll add a few more dimensions to it. If we want to add the 6-inch wall thickness, we can go and select this line here, bring this up. And then if we double click on it and then go to the right arrow, space bar, type in wall, and use all capitals, enter, wall thickness. And that's fine. We're not going to worry about the landing on that being perfect at this point until we go through the dimensioning layer chapter. We'll go through and add a 2-foot dimension for the cabinet. And we'll add a 2-foot 6-inch for a window. And so we still need to draw that in, so I'll come back to that. Let's draw the linear dimension for the sink. And it looks like I have an error here because I'm 2 feet 6 and I need to be another 6 inches between the two of them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset this line 3 inches and move it, and that should fix everything up. And so if we come back here and I offset 3 inches, there we go. And then we can extend these. And then we can add the other geometry for the cabinets. We'll just copy it. All right. I have a 2-foot dimension right here. And again, I've got to go and fix that. So I have to offset this 3 inches. You can move things. If I go and I select move, enter, specify the base point, what you can do is you can just select a line. And then if you have polar tracking enabled, you can track it down and just type in 3 inches. Just make sure it's straight. and that will update that. So that's a little tricky way to do the same thing. And then we can go through and we can add our 1 foot and 2 foot dimensions. There we are. All right, so it looks like we have all the geometry on here. We can save this. And so I'm going to save this as Galley Kitchen. I recommend you put your initials on it. It's just if you lose your file, you can often search for it by your initials. And I'm going to put it in my chapter 8. I'm going to go to my floor plan layer. I'm going to double click within the viewport. I'm going to center that, and then I'm going to dial in the scale. Now, 3/8 inch equals a foot looks great, and so I'm just going to lock that in once I make sure I can see all the dimensions. And then make sure that you go through and you update the title block. You have to be in paper space, meaning you have to double click outside of the viewport, have the paper space icon, and then you can double click on it and you can change this to, this is what's known as an attribute, and we'll cover that in a later chapter also. And then be sure to fill out the title block with your student name, project date, and the scale. Alrighty, and this completes the video for the Galley Kitchen. I'm going to just save it one more time and post the video.